what on earth we're waiting for. And last but most important of all, possibly, if you know a friend, a family member, let's say maybe even a crazy ex-girlfriend who enjoys combat sports, especially boxing, please refer them to this show. I am sure they'd love it. I'm sure they'd love this weekend as we have the return of Vasily Lomachenko off the front lines of Ukraine. He is taking on Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz is 16-0. Vasily Lomachenko's record is 16-2. I would like to start this off before we talk about this fight for a little bit with some stats and facts on that ass. Really, the stats and facts, we like those on this show. And we're going to explain the difference of, never mind Jermaine Ortiz versus Vasily Lomachenko's record, but really the record and the resume and the skill set and the experience of Vasily Lomachenko versus all of the four princes, so to speak, of this era. So, first things first, Vasily Lomachenko 16-2, as I said, Jermaine Ortiz 16-0. That means Vasily Lomachenko has two more fights on his professional record than Jermaine Ortiz. That does not stop the combined losses of Ortiz opponents being more than Vasily Lomachenko by only a little. 46 combined losses for Ortiz's past opponents. Ortiz's past opponents have a combined record of 160 wins. Now let's talk Vasily Lomachenko. All of his opponents put together in the past 43 losses. So close to 46, but still no cigar with having two more fights on his record. Now, instead of 160 wins combined like Ortiz's former opponents, Vasily Lomachenko's former opponents have 495 combined wins. So you see the drastic difference there, right? So before we talk about this fight, we're also going to talk about just the level of competition. Basically, if you look over the resume of Jermaine Ortiz, he looks good. He's a young kid. He's fun to watch. He hasn't really fought anybody up until his last fight with his victory over Jamal Herring. He beat Herring. That's a good win. Meanwhile, Vasily Lomachenko, let's just start off from the bottom. So he did take a loss. He beat Luis Ramirez at 25-3. That was his professional debut, okay? A guy who's 25-3. You know how rare it is in boxing for people to have never, even in their first fight, fought someone with a losing record? Go check out people's records on BoxRec, and you'll see exactly how rare that is. Vasily Lomachenko has never fought a single person with a losing record. But even before his pro career, he had about 300 amateur fights. He's a gold medal Olympian. Then he starts off wins against like I said, Jose Luis Ramirez at 25-3. Sorry, he loses to Orlando Salido in his next fight, who was 41-12 at the time. Salido kind of punched him in the nuts a lot in that fight, but either way, still a great fighter, and he did lose that. Didn't deter him. Very next fight, Gary Russell Jr. You ever heard of that guy? Well, he took his O when he was 24-0. He fought Nicholas Walters, took his O when he was 26-0. He fought Guillermo Rigondeaux, took his O when he was 17-0. Do you realize how impressive of a win that is? And the dispatching of a fantastic boxer like Rigondeaux was eye-opening, to say the least. He beat Jorge Linares when he was 44-3. This is before the few losses that Linares has had to the other elites in the division. Now, again, most of these opponents are before other people get to them, kind of in their prime. Beat Jose Pedraza when he was 25-1. Beat Anthony Crolla when Crolla was 34-6 at the time. That's a good win. That was a good fight. Then he takes on Luke Campbell, again, before other people got to Luke Campbell, when he was 20-2 and one of the greatest prospects coming out of England. Then he took his loss to Teofimo Lopez when he was 15-0. Then he went on his comeback spree to beat Nakatani, who gave Teofimo Lopez a very hard fight, Lopez deserved the nod in that fight, but it was close, went all the way to decision. And Lomachenko came back, said, I'll beat him better. He won TKO, first man to ever stop Nakatani. Then he fought Richard Comey. Absolutely brutalized Richard Comey when he was 30-3. And now he will be taking on Jermaine Ortiz. This is just unreal of a resume for a guy who is fresh into kind of somewhat his pro career. Vasil Lomachenko, from that Ukrainian background, as a lot of them do, have a lot, hundreds of amateur fights. They go into the pros a little later. That's something that's a little more normal coming from that side of the world. But he has done it in truly remarkable fashion. There is a reason, a very good reason, why Vasily Lomachenko was ranked #1 pound for pound. If you went on resumes, sure, other people could have been up there more, but that was people going on skill. Then you take problems with people, then it was about the resume. Now we get back to the resume, and there'll be issues about skills. People in boxing just have a strange habit among things. Now, I wanted to talk about this record that we just brought up of Lomachenko's combined wins coming from of his opponents being 495 combined wins and only 43 losses. So if you go on BoxRec and you check out some of the people that Vasil, like I just showed you there, he's fought in some good stiff competition. If you watch any sort of boxing, you should recognize a lot of those names there. You go on other people's BoxRec and you'll have to just be scrolling forever. A lot of people are 40-0, something, they've never fought anybody really. There's not a lot of names to pull out of the hat there when you scroll through their resume. So I would put that up against most boxers today alone. But also, if you do this fun little game of combined wins and losses, and you want to see Teofimo's, who do you want to see? The unified, where Lomachenko's got better numbers there than any of these other guys. Now, Devin Haney, for instance, is now the unified champion of every belt in the lightweight division. I pulled his record up and did this fun little game, and I forget the exact number. It was less. He has 29 fights instead of 18, so 9 more fights for Devin Haney, and still his opponent's combined wins, it does not I think it scrapes around 400, and Vasili's is at almost 500 with 9 less professional fights. The combined losses are more than 43, and this is a fun game to play to see where the level of competition is. Resumes lie, or resumes don't lie, but numbers do sometimes. So you got to look into these things a little bit. Now let's just talk about the fight. I think this is easy work for Vasily Lomachenko, to be honest with you. Jermaine Ortiz looked good in his last fight, beating Herring, but Jamal Herring is not what he exactly used to be. This is of course after the Shakur Stevenson loss that Jamal Herring faced, and I believe he is retired now. But yeah, Jermaine Ortiz, we'll see what he's got here. He's a fun, exciting kid to watch. He's young enough still, and he can be a little bit explosive, a little bit. He's a good fighter. He is not of the caliber of these elite guys. Maybe one day he will be, but he is not right now. And we will see the difference this Saturday. The absolute angle cutting that will take place with Jermaine Ortiz will just be made easier by even the style that Ortiz fights in. Because Ortiz likes to come forward. He likes a lot of linear punches. These are kind of things where Vasily Lomachenko stands there, moves his head, feints, sits off to the side to get different looks. And Ortiz will just be wet behind the ears when it comes to dealing with this. I imagine that he's going to give Vasily Lomachenko all the looks that he needs pretty early in this fight. I'm going to say that, regardless of if he wins or loses the round, he'll kind of do this for one round and not need any more than that before he's picking it up and starts picking this kid apart. And I just respect Vasily Lomachenko a lot. He is one of my favorite fighters, so fanboy this and that, stick it up your arse, I don't give a fuck. But yeah, that's why I put on the numbers so we could have these sort of conversations if fans are open to it about discussing, you know, just how good is Vasily Lomachenko, just how good his resume holds up compared to guys with way more fights than him and technically way more experience, but not really with the lacking of having, you know, hundreds of less amateur fights than Lomachenko, with the lacking of a lot of them not being Olympic gold medalists, with the lacking of a lot of them having 29 to 40 fights under their belt and still have not had the resume that Vasily Lomachenko has entered into his pro career. And let's play the game that I talked about where you guys go on BoxRec and do a little bit of this work for yourself and see the difference, how many combined wins and losses of their opponents. What is the caliber of the opponent that these men have been fighting compared to Vasily Lomachenko? That is why people love him. That is why he was number one pound for pound at one point. And that is why I believe he has a possibility. I'm not saying it will be. There's a lot of great talent in this sport today. But he has the possibility of getting back there and will most certainly be number two pound for pound very soon again. And you might still have him behind Canelo or Crawford or somebody like that. But that'll be about it. This is the return of Vasily Lomachenko. I want to see him fight Devin Haney, but Devin Haney looked completely weight drained in that last fight. Though he holds all the belts, I'm not sure if he could make 135 pounds again, given the way he looks. We already had Teofimo Lopez move up to 140. We already have Ryan Garcia talking about I want to go up to 140. But any of these guys will do. I'd love for Lomachenko after this fight to get a shot at the belts in a fight with Devin Haney, especially as they've both been under ESPN Top Rank. That is a fight that can actually be made and is more realistic than a Tank Davis fight with Devin Haney or a Ryan Garcia fight with Devin Haney because of the promotional differences there. So I am hopeful that Vasily Lomachenko actually can get this shot at all these belts again. And we're just going to have to see for ourselves. I'm telling you, I've never lost faith in Lomachenko. You will have a couple of losses in there if you're fighting the best guys all the time. You know, and after being shit on from that fucking fight with Teofimo Lopez, you know, Lopez went on to lose to George Kambosos, who doesn't have really anything for the elites of this division. So there's a lot to be seen. There's a lot to unfold in this lightweight division, and I am excited as hell for the fight this Saturday. Let's get it. Enjoy the fights. Be safe. Drop some shit in the chat, and we'll chat about it.